Let's get started. This is awesome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jaclyn, and I'm the Community Science and Outreach Coordinator for the Pacific Rim Museum of Natural History. And welcome to our very first segment of Community to You, which is part of our new digital platform, Museum to You. Community to You will be every Saturday at 3 p.m. where we will feature a community partner and other educators in a family-friendly and free public Zoom call. The goal of Community to You segment is to continue community conversations and connections during this time of physical distancing. So tune in, connect with a different organization every week, have your chance to learn something new, ask your questions. I'm looking forward to engaging with all of you in this new capacity. So today, as our introductory segment, we're going to have an open discussion about this new Community to You program. I want everybody to feel welcome to ask questions about the museum, about our current digital content, and about any community partners. I'm also taking suggestions about who you would like to see on this new platform. Our goal is to just continue connecting with all of our patrons and anybody who's interested in learning more about the Pacific Rim Museum of Natural History and our partnering nonprofit organizations. I have allotted a lot of time for questions and answers. So if you have a question that comes to mind, please type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I'll get to you. Let's see. And then I have the pleasure of being joined by one of our amazing volunteers, Franca, who's going to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about what she volunteers when she's at the museum, where she volunteers mostly, and maybe one or two of her favorite museum memories.
So hi everybody, I'm really excited to be a part of this community event, and even though we're distant from each other, it's awesome that we're able to come onto a platform virtually and still stay connected and share our favorite memories of the museum, and also to educate ourselves on topics that we might not be as familiar with that are science-based. So it's really awesome that the museum is bringing this to us. So as Jaclyn said, I'm a volunteer at the museum. I've been a volunteer now for about 1 year. It was really exciting for me in moving back to the area after undergrad and grad school to be a part of this museum because it meant to me when I was little. I have a picture actually that my great-grandparents took of me and my brother on Sandy, the gray whale, as probably many kids at the museum do. And it's one of my favorite pictures just because it shows you the magnitude of the size of gray whales that are very present in our Monterey Bay. It's crazy to think I'm only about 5 feet tall, so if I were to lay down, there would be 8 to 10 of me needed to actually get the whole length of this gray whale. So they're a large animal and a really majestic one as well. And I think the story of that whale, especially holds to the museum, really shows the museum's effort for preservation and for educating our community on science and the value of that. And it's actually really exciting because it's the migration period right now for gray whales. So if you guys do have the opportunity to go on a walk on the beach by yourself, do be on the lookout for these gray whales. Back in January, I was actually had the amazing opportunity to see a pod of 8 gray whales as they were migrating. And of course, you know, they go down to Baja in the summer, and then in the winter, they're up in Alaska. I was in an outrigger canoe, so there's a team here in Monterey Bay that does outrigger canoeing, and we were out at practice, and we were probably just a half a mile from the shoreline, and we saw the pod of 8 gray whales. So it was pretty spectacular, and it's amazing to think that that's right in our backyard. So pretty cool. So lots of childhood memories spent at the museum. The bird exhibit is my favorite, and it's really awesome to see what the museum has done to it recently, and the new progress and renovations. So if you haven't seen it yet, as soon as this shelter in place is lifted, that would be a good first spot to go. But recently, as a volunteer, one of the projects that I'm really involved in is the plankton monitoring through NOAA. And I've been really blessed to be mentored by Craig, one of the museum volunteers, who's really fantastic at the whole process of both collecting the water sample out at the pier and then bringing that water sample back to the museum, where the museum has compound scopes and dissecting scopes. And the dissecting scopes allow us to see all the samples or all the organisms in our water sample that we're looking at on a petri dish, which is just a small plastic dish that holds the water. And it gives us an overall view of what plankton and algae we might find in that sample. And then we can take a small subset of that sample and look at it under the compound scope, which gives us higher magnification. And we can see some of those smaller organisms that we weren't able to see under the dissecting scope, and then actually count certain microorganisms. And the goal of this program is to monitor both the harmful organisms as well as the beneficials, so get a count of how many we see in our sample, with the objective of trying to find trends of what conditions might bring about a harmful algae bloom. And a harmful algae bloom is simply when one of these harmful organisms produces toxins because they've increased in their populations, either due to nutrients or a temperature condition. And then these toxins are harmful for our fish and our seabirds and so forth. So it's really awesome to be part of that program at the museum, and that the museum offers programs like that, as well as many other community science-based programs.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, Craig is an amazing volunteer. He seems to always be at the museum. You'd think he'd work there. And he finds the coolest things in those plankton samples, and is always willing to share pictures of them anytime.
Yeah. He is, and Craig, as soon as I started, we both, the organisms that we were drawn to was the rotifer. And if you get a chance to Google it, you definitely should. I think they're one of the cutest of the plankton. They almost remind me of a blueberry flower because they have a very distinct corona-like appearance on their head feature, and they spin. So sometimes in the water sample, you can see them moving really fast through the water. They're really awesome.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I always love talking plankton. Love talking about plankton with Craig, and it's really cool. So yeah, definitely look up rotifers are fun. My favorite plankton species are actually like diatoms. I love looking at beautiful diatoms. They look like little glass boxes.
And they come in all different shapes and sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Diatoms are pretty incredible, the biodiversity that they have.
Yeah. So that actually kind of leads us a little bit into my next question, which is, what do you do when you're not volunteering at the museum? And please feel free to share as little or a lot of what you like.
Yes. So when I'm not volunteering at the museum, I'm actually working as a plant pathologist. And many people might wonder, well, what is a plant pathologist? And a plant pathologist, you can equate it to like a doctor, but instead of with human patients, we're working with plant patients. One of the topics are actually very relevant in the medical field, but like I said, we're just working with plants instead of humans. So when we talk about disease as a plant pathologist, we talk about 3 major factors that are needed for disease to occur. And these 3 factors are: you need the host, which is the plant. I actually work with some amazing plant species. They're all berries. So I work with strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries. And of all the plants, I feel like I'm very blessed with the crops that I do work with.
Yeah, it sounds delicious.
Yes, the fruit is fantastic. So the first aspect you need is the host. The second is the pathogen. And the pathogen can be a viral pathogen, it can be a bacterial, it can be a fungal, it can be even an oomyte. And an oomyte is an organism that's fungal-like, but it also has some bacterial-like qualities as well. So that's the second thing you need. And the third thing you need is the proper environment. So some of these microorganisms like hot weather, and you might find them in Florida, and others might thrive in very cool, temperate climates, and you can find them in California. But similarly, there are many different microclimates across California. So one pathogen might be present in the field that another. So when you have all 3 of the components in the same place, under the same conditions, you can get disease occurring. So one of the functions in our lab is to diagnose any plant samples that a grower may bring us and try to figure out which pathogen is causing the disease. And this part is very investigative, and is a fun aspect to the job, because the grower will come in with his plant sample, or plant samples preferably, and he'll tell us a little bit about the history of his field and what kind of symptoms he was noting. So for example, he might say the plant was starting to show some wilt and necrosis, or death of the outer leaves, and they're turning brown or starting to decay. And then he'll say, oh, when I cut into the crown or cane, I've noticed that it too is also chlorotic, and it's looking as if it's been eating away, and it's very discolored, and the roots look nibbled on. So we take all this information that the growers present, and we deduce which pathogen it might be. And based on our deduction, we have certain media that we use in the lab, which is food for that organism. And then we'll plate tissue from the plant, whether it's the roots or the crown or the leaves, on this media type. And if it is the pathogen we think it is, it will grow on this media, and we'll be able to look under the microscope at various features of that organism. So what spores look like under the scope, which are cellular-like structures, if it has any chlamydia, which is a stalk-like structure. And we look at all those features, and we either confirm or disprove that it is the pathogen that the grower has. And then once we've identified it, we will speak to the grower and say, how can we improve the conditions in your field to negate this organism, or what kind of treatment measures can we give you to help you with this situation? So that's one aspect of work that I do. And in addition to working with the growers, we also work with our nursery to make sure that the plants that we give our growers are clean. Primarily, our focus is that they're free of viruses. Plants, like humans, can also get viral diseases, and it's really important that we remove the viruses from the plant before giving it to the growers, because they can have deteriorating effects, such as reducing photosynthesis in the plant.
Oh, that is so awesome. I was actually wondering, like, how did you get into this plant doctor?
Excellent question.
What inspired you to take this route? I love.
So when I was in grad school, my focus was actually in food microbiology. So I was working with foodborne pathogens, specifically Salmonella, Listeria, and E. coli, which are foodborne pathogens present either in the soil or in food processing environments. And if sanitation is not met, these organisms can bloom or blossom and then cause some deleterious effects on the food that we eat. So in grad school, I was working on using biological control, which is other microorganisms that are beneficial, such as lactic acid bacteria, which we find in a lot of fermented foods, such as sauerkraut, and it's also present in some cheeses and bread. So it's been present in our food supply for millions of years, and using those organisms as a way to control some of the foodborne pathogens that are in our processes. So as I was doing that research at Cal Poly, the Strawberry Center had recently opened, and in the past I had greatly enjoyed working with berry crops. And I decided to volunteer at the Strawberry Center. And through my volunteering, helping in the field, picking the fruit, I also had some opportunities to work in the lab. And I worked on some diagnoses. And I discovered I really enjoyed working with plant pathogens over human pathogens. They're a little more friendly in that I cannot get sick from these organisms. And also there's just so much diversity across the bacteria and the fungi that I really enjoyed plating them on the media and seeing the different colors and the shapes and the morphology. So that's kind of how I got brought into this field. But I have to say, as a high school student, I did not know this field existed. So I stumbled upon it through my career path.
That's amazing. I honestly didn't know it existed until I started talking to you about it. So there's so many different careers out there for people and for kids, and with all this new science, there's definitely a lot to do. I think it's amazing that there's so many different jobs available. Like being a plant doctor is a very simple way of putting it, but how you described your job sounds really important. Sounds really important for humans and where we get all of our delicious berries from. I think that's great. Let's see, we've already been speaking for a little over 20 minutes now, so I want to open this time up for questions. If anybody has questions for Franca or questions about our new Museum to You platform, feel free to use the reactions feature to raise your hand or type it up in the chat box. All right, Michelle, I'm going to unmute you and please ask your question. Do you have a question? Nope. Okay. Let's see. Do you have any other question? So, Franca, you mentioned that your favorite room so far in the museum is the bird room.
Mm-hmm.
How interested would you be in maybe a virtual tour of the bird room?
Oh, that would be really awesome.
Yeah, that is something that we were thinking about doing. Sounds like people would be interested. I would be. I love the bird room. I definitely spend some time during the week when I'm working at the museum to walk around it.
I would too. And it would be awesome because there's so many different segments and groups of birds together. You can really focus each segment at a time and kind of highlight certain aspects and characteristics of the birds that are grouped together, and then some unique features to one specific species. So that would be really cool. And I know my favorite thing to do in the bird room is actually just to sit in the room with a paper and pencil and to sketch some of the birds that I'm seeing. And it's really therapeutic and calming to do so. So it might even be neat if the museum can post a bird and then people can draw it and submit their drawings online so people can see what others have created.
That sounds awesome. I do love the little activity in the bird room where you like can build your own bird with different beaks or wings or legs.
I did see that recently and it's so neat. And there's also the new exhibit where there's the different beak sizes and you can try to get the food that's down below so you can see, well, what kind of beak would be needed to dig deep or to dig shallow and get something large or small. It's a really coolly designed exhibit.
Yes. The biggest difference between the exhibit and real life birds is the birds in the exhibit don't fly away when you're trying to draw them.
Yes, which is very beneficial.
That has been something I've been trying to do with my newfound time in my backyard, is draw the birds that like fly and like perch on my fence. But they always fly away before I have a time to finish.
Jaclyn, have your camera outside with you to take a picture of the bird? So even if it flies away, you can go back to the picture later on.
That is a very good idea. I should definitely start doing that. So that's awesome. I love that idea. Have there been any like fun hobbies or activities you've been doing to pass the time being physically or sheltering in place?
Yes. So I've been quilting lately, and I get a lot of my inspiration from nature. So I'm working on a zigzag quilt right now, and the inspiration has come from the waves of the ocean. So it's awesome to be working on that because it brings me back to the beach and all the great memories and the organisms that I see when I'm out there. And then also I'm hoping to make some face masks this weekend for family and friends out of cloth. We can use that and finding fabrics that are really fun and nature inspired, whether it's flowers or animals.
I
just
actually saw Sylvia Earle, Dr. Sylvia Earle. She has a face mask with plankton on it.
Oh, that's so awesome.
That is pretty great. I have been missing the ocean too, and so I definitely have been tuning into ocean cams and stuff. But we actually have a new segment called Exploring the Coast with Hannah, and Hannah, the benefits coordinator, will be taking us on a coastal exploration every week on Tuesday. So
that's really awesome.
Sandy shore walks from her, learning about sand crabs, maybe even some tide pooling events. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And I have loved watching those videos that she's bringing. But I think it's
And Jaclyn, is that all going to be posted on the museum site?
Everything is posted on our new Museum to You webpage, which I posted the link in the chat box. Also, we have a YouTube page that has been revived, so please subscribe there, and all of our videos will also be posted there.
Jaclyn, do you know if either now or in the future the museum might do a podcast?
I don't know. That's a really good idea. I can definitely ask and push that through at our next staff meeting, but I'm not sure if we will be doing a podcast. That sounds like a pretty great idea though.
That would be kind of fun to interview different people in the community and keep that going throughout the whole year.
Definitely. That's definitely something we could work on possibly for whenever our museum gets open back up. But for now, we'll be talking to our community partners right here, Saturdays at 3 p.m. And this event is open for everybody, families, kids, volunteers, anybody that wants to join in can. Next Saturday at 3 p.m., we're going to have the Monterey Museum of Art join us, and they're going to have a kid-friendly activity to share with us. And then the following Saturday, April 18th at 3 p.m., we're going to have the Elkhorn Slough Reserve join us for our conversation.
Super exciting. Now, Jaclyn, for the kid-friendly activity, are there any supplies that kids need to prepare before?
I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm waiting for them to get back to me, but I will definitely be sending out that information, and it will all get posted on our website and in our newsletter.
Awesome.
Great questions. All right, we don't have that much time left, but does anybody have any last minute questions that they want to ask? If not, if you don't feel comfortable doing it live here, you can email me and I will post my email in the chat box. Thank you guys. Oh, question. What are some fun programs coming up in the next week? So there's actually quite a bit going on. I can go through our list. We have on Mondays at 1 p.m., we have Museum Mondays with Sierra, which is a segment for preschoolers through second grade. And it's a learning lesson about a different museum exhibit. So those are really fun, and those are targeted for the younger kids, preschool through second grade. I can't remember what her topic is this Monday, but I'm sure it's good. Sierra is a great teacher. On Tuesdays, we're going to have Exploring the Coast of Hannah at 11 a.m. On Wednesday, I'm going to have a Create with Us, a new segment, craft segment, where I'm going to be teaching you guys how to build a solitary shelter for solitary bees and a little watering hole to help out our bees in our community. On Thursday, there's going to be Sciencing in Place at 7 p.m. for adults to have a conversation with local scientists about different issues. And on Friday, there's going to be a closer look where Sierra will take a closer look at what our Guess What Wednesday Instagram item was. And then Saturday, we will be talking with the Monterey Museum of Art. And all of this is on our website.
So Jaclyn, for some of these events, even though they're going to be occurring in the morning, say, you'll be able to go back and watch them at any time?
Yes, all of these events are going to be recorded and posted to both our website and YouTube to be viewed by anybody, especially if they missed the event because they had work.
That's awesome that you guys are adding that feature.
So this has been a really awesome conversation. Thank you so much, Franca, for joining us. And thank you to everybody who came and took a little bit out of their Saturday afternoon to join us. Please feel free to email any community suggestions or community partners you'd like us to interview, or any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.